Hello, and welcome to the Craft and Calling podcast. I am your host, Christine Marie, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. We are going to be diving into how we need to focus for every single one of us as owners of trades businesses. We need to be focusing not just on where the leads are coming from, not just where our potential customers may be existing, but what happens once they call us, once they fill out the form, once we've paid for that lead to come in. What happens next? And for so many businesses that I've seen, worked with, even in our family painting business, I found that the lack of systems and processes on the back end to effectively allow for an amazing customer experience made for a very high cost for the lead that we're paying for. But then also all of those dollars are just going down the toilet. And so I can't think of anyone better to talk about this than the one and only Leandra Grenier-Green, and actually my co-founder of Foundation First Marketing. And so Leandra has worked as COO at the #1 Google Ads agency before coming over and co-founding this business with me, and has worked with a number of trades businesses herself. She's led her teams to allow for incredibly successful and impactful Google Ads campaigns, YouTube campaigns, search campaigns. And what she's seen and experienced for all of these clients, as well as for many other industries, is what ultimately positions her to be able to get really specific today to help us understand what the customer experience needs to look like on the back end based off of all of the leads and dollars that they've invested on the marketing side. So Leandra, so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we are chatting all the time, but now we're on camera. This is great.
Yeah, this is fun. We're being official here. So I love it. Leandra, I heard a story about one particular foundation repair company that was a client of yours in the past. And frankly, they were actually going to stop spending on Google Ads with you guys because they were experiencing a really low conversion rate with the leads that were effectively that your team was sending them. But then there was a little bit of a turn of events when you guys really dove into why that was. Can you share a little bit about that story?
Yeah, this actually happened a few times with lead generation clients. So with marketing, there's lead generation or e-commerce. E-commerce is so easy to see where the money's going because you get a sale. But with lead generation, especially with service providers, the marketing dollars go towards getting them a phone call or a form fill. So for this particular client was a foundation repair company, quite a large one. They service multiple cities, multiple geographies, and they were spending a significant amount of money on Google Ads. So they trust us with the money to spend it to get them clients. And we did everything we could to do that. And on our end, we saw really, really good results. We saw we're giving you all these phone calls, we're giving you exactly what you want. But on their end, it wasn't translating into sales. So they were ready to pull the plug. They didn't see the value that we were providing, even though we had all the data to show them exactly what they wanted was what was happening. So at that point, we knew we had to dive into the actual phone calls to show them exactly what they were getting. So we use a call tracking software called Call Tracking Metrics, but there's multiple different ones out there that was recording all of the phone calls that came from the ads directly. And we had a team go through, listen to all the phone calls, make a report, and kind of rate them on a rating system of 1 star being low quality lead, 5 star being high quality lead. And as we were going through this assignment of going through hundreds of phone calls that we were generating, we saw a trend that the scripts that were being used to kind of sell on that phone call were not very effective or were not followed properly. And this particular client was quite large, so they had a whole team of people answering the calls, and there was no consistency, and the sales were just being kind of left on the table. So we put the recordings together, shared it with the executives who were about to make the decision, and showed them, hey, look, we're doing our job. Your team isn't doing their job. And it was a huge eye-opening moment for them. They realized that they had a lot of work to do on their end to train their team on how to close the leads and how to really make value out of those calls.
That's so good. It really is wild. You know, we think about, and a lot of the teams that we both have worked with Foundation First, we've seen a lot of time, effort, energy goes into training the sales team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you close when you're on the job? When you're, I mean, I even sat in the back for one of our clients. It was the, you know, one of the general managers was teaching all the sales team gentlemen about, you know, when you walk into the home, keep this respectful distance, ask if you can put the bag on the floor. You don't just want to fling your stuff around, you know, ask them about the shoe policy of the house. They're getting so specific about how to build customer rapport, but all of those customers and potential opportunities for sales only get there by way of the customer call center representatives and the success thereof. And so if we're not taking the time to nurture the very first touch point of the customer journey and really allow for that to be an amazing customer experience, man, those sales guys who are getting all that training, they don't even have a shot because we're not getting them to that point. So I think that what the story that you shared is so incredibly important. And what did they do? Like, what did the end customer actually do to make that change with their team to start improving things so that it's not just measuring lead quality, we have to actually measure the customer experience quality as well. So what did they do to enhance the customer experience quality?
Yeah, they did a lot of internal training with their team. I think they were at a call center, maybe about 10, 15 people. So retraining many of them, changing the script based on what they were hearing in the phone calls. So the executives spent a lot of time listening to the phone calls to kind of understand what they were hearing and developed a new script around that was able to convert a lot higher. I think there were some personnel changes as well. There were some specific people that were not following what they were supposed to be doing, and that could be heard on the calls. So a lot of changes, and within a few weeks of implementing those changes, they saw that, okay, it is our role. We are making lots of changes and seeing that we're having a lot more booked calls, booked appointments, and that we're able to increase revenue overall. So they were able to directly tie back to the marketing efforts that we were doing and getting the revenue that they wanted. And another thing too is we're talking about quite a big company here, but a lot of our clients are smaller mom and pop shops where they don't have a call center, they don't have multiple people answering the phones. So even a lot of times it's a business owner or maybe one other person answering the calls, and that person might not have this as their dedicated role. They might be on the work site, they might be doing a bunch of other things, but something that's important too is timeliness to picking up that phone, because in a service-based industry, a lot of times if your basement's leaking, you're going to call, you need someone to come right away. So you call, and if that person doesn't answer, they're just going to move on right next to the next person on their list. So answering the calls right away is really, really important. And then giving that quality of customer service on that call right away.
I know we use Go High Level for our clients with the immediacy of that response, but there's a number of CRMs that, and CRMs is really that management software, that tool that can be used. With call tracking metrics, let's talk about that software for a minute. I would imagine that that's probably more so for bigger teams, not really the mom and pop shops. Is that fair to assume? This call tracking metrics is the software that effectively allows for us to track every single call that comes in, rate the quality of the call. Is that fair to say maybe for bigger teams?
I think it's used for each, and the pricing works for per call. So if you get lots of calls, you're paying a little bit more. If you're getting less, you pay less. So it kind of works out. Small teams can use it as well. But it's interesting how it works is that your main phone number is swapped out for a kind of a fake phone number or a dynamic number. So the phone numbers that are on the ads aren't your actual phone number. They're kind of a masking phone number. So that's the way that we can see that they're coming from specific channels. So we can have a phone number for Facebook ads, a phone number for Google ads, and we can see that that's where the leads are coming from. And ultimately they do call the end phone number, which is the real phone number. But it just kind of dynamically swaps it that way. But big teams and small teams can definitely make use of it. Sure.
I love that point of the dynamic number for attribution of the source, because maybe it's not necessarily, you can use it for multiple reasons. It sounds like not just for, hey, what's the quality of our calls? How are we doing on our end? What's the quality of the leads coming in? But also, where are the leads coming from?
Yeah. Yeah, it can be used for print too. If you have a print magazine that you're putting an ad in, a local magazine, and you want to see the leads that are coming from that, you can have a dynamic number printed on there that goes
Mhm.
through the software, or on the website too. You can have the main number on the website swapped out with a fake phone number.
Mhm.
Track those as well. So.
And y'all, the reason why that's so helpful is because if we are spreading our marketing dollars across multiple different activations, let's say, we're doing that print magazine ad, that's so hard to track.
Mhm.
But if it is that dynamic phone number, it's like, well, the only phone number that this exists for is for that campaign. And now I can see, okay, I spent $1,000 for that newspaper placement. Well, we got $25,000 worth of
Mhm.
jobs from that. Obviously that's a good expenditure of our ad dollars. So that's really, really helpful in that regard. And then for the, let's get a little bit specific about tracking and about kind of the aftermath process. So they have call tracking metrics set up. They've got the dollars set up that are kind of on the back end in terms of maybe it's Go High Level, maybe it's some other type of data management platform that has all of the sold jobs. How
Mhm.
would they go about correlating the lead that came in through call tracking metrics with the sold job?
It'll all be connected to that phone number and integrated into the CRM, depending on which one that they use. But ultimately, what you always want with all your marketing dollars is to know exactly where every single dollar is going. Uh,
Mhm.
so once it's all connected in the back end, and that's a very vague answer, but it really depends on which systems you're using. But you'll be
Yeah.
able to see, I spent X amount of dollars, got this amount of leads from this channel, and know exactly where your money's going and the value that you're getting from it.
Good. And I know as well, regardless of what system you're using to track your sales, you can always do a match back with the name and address of the customer too. You
Mhm.
can do it by the name of the customer because call tracking metrics will say first name, last name, and then are you the customer's unique phone number that they called from. And
Mhm.
then does call tracking metrics include the address of the customer?
No, it just has whatever publicly listed information there is from
Okay.
phone lines. Yeah, so if
Okay.
some people choose to have their name private, you won't see that, but anything public will be listed on there.
Perfect. And then you can obviously use the phone number that they called from to match back with the sales
Yeah,
report.
exactly. And another interesting thing about call tracking metrics specifically, and I'm sure other systems do it as well, is that the 5-star lead, so whatever you tag as a 5-star lead, whatever it becomes a sale, you can tag that internally in the system. And then you can add that report back into Google Ads and ask it to give you more of those type of leads. So it's just another way to hyper segment
Mhm.
and focus on getting the right kind of leads again and again, so that you're not just
Yes.
wishing for things. You can use actual data to get those.
Leander, that's huge. And guys, we're getting a little technical. So bear with us now. We're getting a little bit technical into some of the things that we do on the Google Ads management side for clients. So having call tracking metrics set up and having the ability to tag the 5-star and the 1-star is
Mhm.
effectively taking that data and feeding it back into Facebook, back into Google, and saying, we want these customers and we also don't want these. Like,
Mhm.
take the bad calls and segment them out. And it could be bad calls by way of, man, these people are actually out of territory. So they got a 1-star. That helps us further segment down based on the data. So we want to give data back to advertising platforms to really help continue to narrow down and help our dollars to be most efficient.
Yeah.
Anything else there before we move on?
No, that's it. I know we've been talking about a lot about call tracking metrics specifically, but there's so many other platforms that do this. Go High Level, some CRMs do it internally as well. So Go High Level is an internal call
Yes.
platform, but there's lots of options.
Yeah, that's so good. And then with lead scoring, I want to talk about that just for a quick minute before we move on. Being really clear with your call center about what quantifies or qualifies a 1 through 5
Mhm.
star rating. That the more specific we are with, and this is talking a little bit more to larger teams, not the mom and pop shop where it's you or maybe one other person answering the phone,
Mhm.
because frankly, it's just who has time for that when you're that busy. But allowing for there to be clearly outlined lead scoring that then everybody's on the same page. Because one of the problems, Leandra, that you identified with this client, that you guys were giving them all the leads. You were fulfilling on it. They had the opportunity to be backfilled out for weeks on end, but there was a lot of inconsistency in the way that people were not just answering the phones, but the scripts that were being used. And I would imagine also the manner in which they were weighing and measuring the quality of the lead in and of themselves. And y'all, just finally, I really want to drive this point home. Invest in your call center. Invest in training them. Some of the call centers that I've seen, even if it's 3 ladies, even if it's 2 people, invest in your team who's answering the phone, because they are the first experience with your brand. They're the first ones. They're the first touch point. And so really it's, how do we want our customers to feel when they call us? So this is ultimately a branding question when it comes to the emotion. We want people to feel, but a really strong brand leaves them with an emotion when they interact with them, whether that emotion is, oh my gosh, I might actually get my problem solved, like what relief, that's a relief feeling. And then others is like, oh, I feel like I can really trust them. They seemed really educated. So then that's another question for your call center reps. Do they actually have the knowledge about the product that they need in order to sell it well? So I would really encourage you guys, if you haven't done this before, I will sometimes call in and use a different name or something, just to move through the whole experience. Yeah, it's really good to get that experience, or even have like your dad or mom or brother, sister, friend call and then listen to what the experience is like if you guys don't have a recording set up for you to listen on the back end. And then one last note here. So we were actually launching in a new territory for one of our foundation repair clients, and it was not being as successful as we wanted to see. And it was the same kind of thing where we were actually getting a lot of leads, but we weren't closing appointments. So we need to not just be looking at, are we closing sales, but are we closing appointments based off of all the calls that we're getting and forms that are being filled out too. And so what I found was that I went in and I listened to the calls and found that a lot of the calls were being made after hours from this one particular territory. So it was a suburban area, right? So a lot of people are working 9 to 5, and the call center was literally 8:30 to 5:30. So there was only like a little bit of a window of time for those 9 to 5ers to call and actually talk to a real person. So I went in and I listened to the recordings. What I found was that they had duplicate voice messages set up. So it was 30 seconds of one and then 15 seconds of another. So it was only until, I think it was 43 seconds in, could the customer actually leave a voice message. They were bouncing and jumping up, hanging off the phone at 30 seconds in. Who wants to, and especially when they heard it repeat again, it's like, okay, I'm done. They're hanging up. So do that process of calling to speak with your live agent, but then also calling to listen to the voice message. What is really the whole experience that someone's going to get? What's the emotion that they're going to feel? Because having a double voice message box set up, I'm probably going to feel frustrated by the time I actually get to leave my message.
And then you just call the next company, your competitor, and go with them because they answered better. They had a better experience. Yeah, putting yourself in the shoes of your client is so important. It seems so simple, but just move yourself along the customer journey, see exactly how you would feel if you were that customer. And it's shocking sometimes the experience that you think is going all well, and if you're not auditing it every once in a while, it can be very interesting. We've had a lot of clients too who thought they had the greatest customer service team, everything was great, and then when they did these audits or they were listening to the phone calls, they realized that they were just going to the competitors, or they were not selling their business. They were just kind of offloading it to a competitor if maybe they were too busy, or if that person was calling to ask for the competitor, and the client and the customer service rep, instead of saying, no, we're not that client, but we do the same thing, they would just give them the competitor's phone number and just kind of lose sales so easily. So do some audits once in a while is very important.
I love that. And I'm glad you brought that up, Leandra, because one of the customers that we've worked with in the past, they actually set up incentives for their call reps, call centers. Effectively, for every single booked appointment, you get $1 or $2 or $3 or whatever it is, so that it's not just the salesman who gets some semblance of commission, but they do too. And then it's not just a booked appointment, but it's an actual, what did they call it? It was effectively an accomplished appointment. Something, I forget exactly what the term that they used, but it's not just booking it, because the next step is keeping the appointment on the schedule. That we keep them long enough so that they don't cancel it. Because one of the things that I was looking at with another client a year ago, I was looking back at the data for I think it was 2023 I was looking at the beginning of last year. And I was like, y'all, we had 11% of our total customers canceled their projects. This was sold customers. 11% of our sold customers we had to give money back to. What happened? And I got so upset about that. But no one else was looking at that data, because they're like, oh, well, we sold the job. Canceled appointments, canceled jobs are so incredibly important for us to look at in terms of data. It's almost like, Leandra, I think that this might be good for us to have for even just, foundation repair, foundation first marketing, where it's really talking about the foundations of your business, getting all of the foundation in place, set up so that you can run your business successfully. Let's create a checklist of like all the data points that people need to be looking at, because it's the canceled jobs as well at the very, very end of the customer journey. And then even beyond that, the bottom of funnel is, are these people actually referring you? Are they actually happy with the job you did? You can see it on the Google reviews, but are they actually referring people? One of our clients, 22% of their overall business revenue came from referrals. So we need to be watching those numbers and watching the data in terms of lead sources. And then how are we following through to, when we talk about the customer experience in general, at the end, the customer experience is effectively like a layer in parallel with the customer journey, because for every step of the customer journey, they're having an experience. So we need to be thinking about what's a 5-star experience at every single touch point of that customer journey. And so at the very end of the journey, bottom of funnel is they're done their job. They're done. They've left the job site. What happens next? We need to be looking at how are we thrilling and delighting them later on, so that they're telling their neighbors the next time that their basement gets flooded, or the next time they need a new roof. And then how are we also staying in touch with them? Y'all, some of you have massive email lists that you're not tapping into. So that's another point too, where a lot of these customers, it's not just a one-time repeat or a one-time job. It could be repeat customers.
Yeah. They'll buy a new house, they'll have rental properties, they'll have friends. There's always new business. So that's exactly right. The conversation goes beyond the sale. It goes on using that email list and having offers in there, or just reaffirming the relationship forever.
Yeah.
But keep them engaged is really, really important.
That's so good. And then to your point about, call tracking metrics, there can be a phone number in the email that's dedicated to that email campaign for that offer. And maybe it's, gutters or something for the fall. And then there's a unique phone number for that. I love this. I'm wondering, when it comes to, the quality of lead, and really allowing for us, when we're analyzing, the actual campaigns themselves on the marketing side, we're going to get a little bit more technical here on the Google ad side of things. Do you have any advice for folks who are actually kind of doing the bootstrapping? They can't afford foundation first. They can't afford a Google Ads agency. They're actually the ones doing it. What would you say to them in terms of like how to get started, where to start at all if they want to start putting some money into a Google ad campaign?
Well, it's all about testing different channels, because with marketing, we all know there's so many, everyone wants your money. There's so many places to put your money. But testing small amounts and seeing what actually works, because depending on what your business is, Google might be the answer, or maybe it's Facebook, or maybe it is print. There's so many different ways. So without an unlimited budget, just put little bits into each channel and see where there's a little bit of traction, and go from there and start building from there. But the most important thing is measuring and being able to see exactly where your leads come from, so that you can double down on those particular channels.
I love that. And making sure that to your point of having the source data, where either we're maybe asking the customer and having some kind of tracking set up. It doesn't need to be expensive, but some kind of tracking set up to identify, okay, this was Facebook or this was Google, if you're going to be running concurrently. That's really good to identify. And one thing too, in you being able to work with the #1 Google Ads agency, you worked with the Google Ads strategists in the world as well. And they talk a lot about how attribution is just nearly impossible because people see you across multiple channels and they need to be nurtured, especially depending on the type of trades business that you have. If it's, a commodity type of trades business, but normally it's in the moment, I need this company, and you kind of need to take quick action, so it's really looking at, how are we staying in front of people, but also what does our digital presence look like when people Google these keywords? And probably Google is a really good place to show up.
Yeah, Google seems like the obvious answer for a trades business because you're there exactly when they search what they're looking for. But there's a lot of free options too. Like it costs nothing to have a Google My Business account, which is the listing that you see when you type in, plumbers near me, and you see on the map listing shows up there. And even just that, they can get a lot of business just from being on the map and collecting those 5-star reviews. So when you have a client that has a good experience, ask them to rate you a good review. I personally, whenever I'm looking for trades, it's always going straight to their Google reviews and making sure that I'm ones at the top ones. So collecting those Google reviews doesn't cost anything, and it's super kind of good to your business. Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, I love the mention of the free options, and honestly, you can be posting on social for free too. You can, if you're just being faithful to take a selfie, when you're at somebody's job, that's going to be really, really helpful. And then if you put the location and the service in the description, Google ranks for social and the content that's there. And also, it's not just the search engine rankings. There's a lot of people searching on ChatGPT these days. And so the more that we're talking and writing content on social that could be found on by a kind of an answer engine. So writing more FAQ type content, not just like about us. That's going to be helpful too in terms of free. So I love that. Thank you for mentioning that, because I think that that's the first place to start is, have I checked all the boxes for all the free forms of advertising that I can?
Even it's shocking how many clients just don't have basic listing directories set up, like the Yelp listings or whatever other kind of local directories. Doesn't cost anything, just a little bit of time. Competitors are on there, so you might as well take a little bit of time to set yourself up and not have to worry about those.
All right, so y'all, this is what we're gonna do. I was just taking a few notes. So there's some real good action items for you here. And I'm going to make sure that we include that data checklist that I was talking about. I want to make sure that we give that to you guys. Leandra and I will put that together and we'll go ahead and drop that in the show notes. But do an audit of where you're listed. Where are you online? Are you on all the local directories? And can you get on your local BBB? Because that's going to be really, really helpful. Better Business Bureau. That's going to be really helpful for you. Yelp, obviously Google, but also, y'all, we were doing some advertising on Bing, which is a Microsoft platform. That was doing really, really well for us. And I'm pretty sure that there's, listings there as well, directories on, talk about Yahoo. Some people are still using some of these kind of older engines. And then also, check your Facebook profile. What does it say? When's the last time that was touched if you have a Facebook profile? Because that's a directory too. When I search for companies, Facebook profiles come up. And especially if you've got more Facebook reviews than maybe Google, then really cultivating your Facebook is a really good place to be as well. Because people do, especially on neighborhood pages, I see a lot of people ask questions of, hey, I need a new landscaper. Hey, I need a new roofer. And people are like, this is who I used. And then they tag the company page in their response. So that will be helpful. And then the last thing here that we talked about already, do that audit. Call yourself. See what happens. Call during hours, after hours. And then Leandra, you mentioned this right at the beginning. And y'all, we've talked about this a number of times on this podcast, but set up the automated text response, set up the automated email response, because if you have that set up, that could prevent your your potential customer from going to your competitors if you just give them instantaneous connection, especially if you're small and the calls are kind of waiting on you. We all need that. So Leandra, thank you so much. Anything else that you'd want to add to this before we jump?
No, I just think it's so great that there's so many home services companies out there that need a little bit of help, but the service that you're providing is really, really great. We just need to get the word out there and get all the clients. But like I said, there's lots of free options, and then once you tap those out, then there's some paid options. But
yeah, good. I love it. And last final audit. I know that there's a lot of audits we're talking about. Check your customer journey. What are you doing at the bottom of the funnel to make for a really good experience that encourages people, our customers, to become advocates? That's the cheapest form of marketing you can have. So with that, Leandra, thank you. So appreciate